Well, Queensland's bid to host the 2032 Olympics in Brisbane is back on track as the Premier reaffirmed the state government's commitment after putting the plan on hold to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. Meanwhile, eco-warriors are at it again, bringing peak hour traffic to a standstill in Brisbane. Two climate activists even climbed on top of a rental truck and live streamed the stunt on Facebook. Joining me now, leader of the One Nation Party, Pauline Hanson. Great to see you tonight, Pauline. Thank you for joining us. Let's talk Olympics first. I know you're not the biggest fan of Queensland pressing ahead with the 2032 Olympic Games.
No, I'm not, Peter. I'll stick to my stance. We can't afford it and we shouldn't be having it here in Queensland. The fact is that over the next 4 years, the budget in Queensland will be at $130 billion deficit. Now, if she proceeds with this Olympics, as we've seen, a lot of other countries have held the Olympics, they've gone in further to debt over it. You know, some countries $16, $20 billion further into debt. It's ridiculous. So I don't believe we should be having it here. They're not good economic managers of the state. The Labor have proven that. So I'm sorry, we shouldn't be having the Olympics here.
Well, I think you get a lot of support in the regions on this, Pauline. I don't think it's as popular in the regions as it is in, say, for example, southeast Queensland. Let's talk Extinction Rebellion. Now, look, you and I have spoken about this ad nauseum, about these ratbags. Today, they got up on top of a rental truck. They live streamed this stunt onto Facebook. You know, massive delays in the heart of the CBD. What are we going to do with these ratbags, Pauline?
Peter, don't give them any airplay, right? It is the media. They don't need to do anything. They just cause a destruction in the centre of heart of Brisbane. They get the media coverage. They've got their point across. If there was no media coverage whatsoever, we weren't talking about it, they wouldn't have anything. So because they get the media coverage, they get their point across, that's why they do it. And the book must be thrown out. Isn't this the same rat bag that the judges have let off, giving them a slap over the wrist? So there you go back to your court system again and the judges, and that's what people are fed up with it, that they disrupt people, everyday working people, they tie up emergency services. You know what? I'd be charging them for that. I'd actually make sure they had to pay it back through the whole life, that they must pay back this cost to the taxpayers. It's just ridiculous.
But Pauline, we've had situations where judges have reduced fines from 10 grand to 1,000 that have lifted, convictions being recorded. And, you know, as I've said many, many times, until you actually throw these guys into the clink for a few days and say, look, you cool your heels in there, because what happens is they go in, they give them a slap on the wrist, they come back out and say they're going to do it again. This will continue for the next 100 years, the way these guys are going.
Peter, the public are fed up with bleeding hearts judges that are not listening to the public expectation of what they hand out in sentencing. This is why I have been pushing for many years. There has to be a separate board that actually listens to complaints about judges from the public. It is ridiculous that it takes the full parliament, both the lower and upper house, to actually throw a judge out who's been appointed under the political parties. They can't get rid of them. Judges are there, especially in your federal courts, are there till they're 70. There's no going up for re-election like everyone else does, has to apply for the job again. Politicians have to reapply for the job. Judges don't. So they just do whatever they want to do. And I think the public are fed up with it. If you have a separate board, that the people complain to the board, that judge comes before the board, they have to say, OK, you're not handing out sentences in the public's expectation. Why shouldn't you lose your job? Let's get tough on this.
Point.
We have to live in this society. I've been on about this for years and years, and I'm going to keep pushing till we get some common sense to prevail to say to these judges, you are not doing what the public expects.
There's a lack of community expectation in there, isn't there? There's no doubt about that.
Correct.
Pauline, the Wallabies put a cat among the pigeons at the weekend. They decided they'd sing two versions of the national anthem. One, of course, is in English, and, of course, the other is in an Indigenous dialect. Now, Latrell Mitchell and Anthony Mundine have come out today and said, disgusting, don't agree with it, don't want it, doesn't address the real issues. But Larry Corowa and Steve Renouf have come out and said, yep, loved it, should happen more often. What are your thoughts?
It's no skin off my nose if they want to actually sing it in their own language or mouth it. But really, we are an English-speaking country. You know, the problem is, what Aboriginal dialect do you pick out of all the hundreds that you have out there? So which one do you pick? So then you're going to have problems between you not singing in our Indigenous language. How much of this Indigenous language is actually spoken? You know, really? You know, I think you really have to, you know, consider the fact that we're all Australians. I've got a problem if you want to change the word from free to actually, you know, or young to free, whatever. If you want to change a word in it, no problem. But isn't it all about us being, you know, on the same playing field?
United.
Excuse a pun. United,
Yep.
but it is.
Yeah.
You're dividing us.
Yeah.
So what are you going to say? The next language? Should we sing it in Italian or Greek or German? What are we going to do next? So we appease these people. English is the language here. So where do you stop? If it's one-off, fine. If you want to sing in your own language, fine. I'm not hearing you sing that. It's about the national anthem, and that's what it's all about. Peter, look, we had the flag in Australia. That goes back in history. Then the Aboriginals took up the flag in the 70s. Now it's about they never had a national anthem. Now they're wanting to change the words to the national anthem because it doesn't include them or they feel out of it, you know. It's about, this is where the nation is now. You can't go back in time and change what's happened. We are all here. It's about time we started pulling together as one nation and respecting each other and trying to work together instead of this division that I see all the time.